that my peers who weren't able to sign up since they got out of junior high school at 2:30, so they were a little late. I was hoping they could testify just real quick right after me.
Did they sign up on the list?
They weren't able to. They got out of junior high just at 2:30.
Well, I'm sorry, we have to abide by things but maybe you could speak on their behalf since you have up to 10 minutes.
All right.
Okay, if you would identify your name and who you represent, thank you.
Yeah, well, first I wanted to say thanks to everyone in the public who decried this committee for lack of opportunity to testify, because I think that without that public pressure, it might have been difficult for the committee to relent and let the public speak. And I want to say how appalled I am that this opportunity to testify came only when school had started in nearby districts, so educators and students wouldn't have the opportunity to give oral comments. And the students outside of the area, also there's no online testimony, so they didn't really have the opportunity either. If it weren't for that, I think I can guarantee you that this room would be packed just as it was in the summer, with empowered young people working to defend their constitutionally protected rights to freedom of expression. You all know, I think, who I am, since I feel like you were so determined not to hear from students that you kicked me out of this committee twice before. My name is Shiva Rajbhandari, to introduce me. I'm a third-generation Idahoan.
Shiva, I am going to interrupt because no one on this committee ever kicked you or anyone out. That's a misrepresentation of this committee.
Okay. I'm a third-generation Idahoan and a junior at Boise High School. And I unequivocally do not believe that Idaho educators who have worked twice as hard the last year and a half to completely rewrite curriculum to accommodate online, hybrid, masked, and distance learning, only to be insulted and stamped on by the legislature, are indoctrinating students to hate America, as this committee purports. And I feel that I know the reason behind this task force, so I want to speak more to that today. Madam Chair, Lieutenant Governor McGeachin, Representative Giddings, you won't succeed. You won't succeed in silencing student voices. You won't succeed at bringing Idaho back to the 1800s. You won't succeed at abolishing public schools as the Freedom Foundation aspires. And you won't succeed in being elected to the executive branch of state government, which I feel is the true purpose of this press time. And you won't succeed because despite all your efforts, we Idahoans are smart, we're educated, and we can't be fooled into believing that something exists when the opposite is true. All across the state, there are young people like me who will vote in the Republican primary for the first time in 2022. And we are watching, and we see your attempts to silence us, we see your attempts to defund our public schools, we see the propaganda the Freedom Foundation has put out to discredit educators and advocate for what they call school choice, but what many see as, a way to advocate for alternate, reducing funding for education and advocate for online learning or homeschooling, when really that doesn't work for the vast majority of Idahoan students. And we will vote with that in mind in 2022. So that was my testimony, and I'll stand for questions after, but I want to share my friend Yvonne's. She's a freshman at North Junior High. She says, I oppose this task force. I've been enrolled in Idaho's education system since first grade, and it truly breaks my heart to see how we treat our educators and the education system in general. Not only do teachers get paid very little in return for their hard work, but now they're getting publicly accused of indoctrinating their students, which, by the way, is a complete lie with absolutely no evidence. This is not fair. This is the extremism that Idaho is known for. This should not be such a polarizing issue. For the record, in class, we don't even learn enough history to begin with. We don't learn about things like the Tulsa Race Massacre, where black residents had their homes and businesses destroyed, about redlining, or the Hell's Canyon Massacre, where Chinese miners were murdered right here in Idaho. We learn these things on our own time, often hearing about them through social media and doing our own research to follow. Knowing and acknowledging that parts of America's past were racist does not mean that we've been indoctrinated. And let me make myself clear, and this is Yvonne speaking. America is not a bad country, but it's certainly not perfect either. Acknowledging that we made mistakes while trying to move on by learning from them is what a true patriot does. It is also important to note that since the establishment of this task force in June, this is the first meeting where public testimony is allowed. Right after school starts, and it happens right after school starts, making it extremely difficult for students to show up. My school is pretty close, and I was driven here immediately after the bell rang. Yet I'm still a few hours late, and unfortunately, too late to sign up for testimony. My school, it almost seems as if you're silencing our voices when they are some of the ones that matter the most when it comes to our education. We live in a country where we are told that our voices matter and our votes matter. To Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin, to Representative Priscilla Giddings, to all the other task force members here, I hope you listen to the voices you are hearing, because we are the future of America. Thank you for your time. And I'll stand for questions.
Okay, committee, are there any questions for Shiva on his testimony? Go ahead, Representative Giddings.
Thank you. Mr. Shiva, just a quick question. Are you a member of BLM Boise or Extinction Rebellion Boise chapter?
I am not a member of BLM Boise.
And Extinction Rebellion?
I'm the founder of Extinction Rebellion in Boise.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Shiva? All right. Well, thank you, Reverend Wilson. Go ahead.
Madam Chairman, Shiva, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for your courage in coming forward to speak. I categorically disagree with you that we made it hard for you to do that, but I do appreciate your courage because it takes courage to stand in front of people and say what's on your heart. I want to ask you, did you listen to the evidence that was presented? Have you Googled critical race theory? And I'm not trying to put you down or be condescending. I'm saying that the people who came forward ahead of you have spent obviously hundreds of hours doing their research, and nobody I don't expect you to do that, but you Google critical race theory, you're going to come up with a fountain. And I'm just wondering, have you done that?
Shiva.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and thank you, Reverend. I have Googled critical race theory, and yes, I did listen to the testimony. And I wanted to share something with you, a personal story, in some form, which is that what I found is when parents, I think that parents are stakeholders in their child's education, but you can't run a classroom with 26 kids and not expect for a parent to be upset at some time. And I wholeheartly, I feel for the woman who testified earlier who said their daughter had been bullied, and that is really wrong. I don't really see how any of this relates to critical race theory, because I haven't heard evidence of critical race theory being taught in schools, except from a guy from New Zealand, I think, who spoke at this task force earlier, and I question, kind of his expertise on teaching critical race theory, specifically in Idaho. And what I see this task force, and actually the national campaign funded by the Heritage Foundation and the Koch brothers and the Freedom Foundation, the goal of that, I think, is less to talk about critical race theory, which, is kind of a puppet word that we don't, critical race theory is something that's kind of discussed in graduate school. It's not taught in elementary school, it's not taught in high school, it's taught in graduate school as a philosophy, right? So when we talk about critical race theory and we tell the public that something's bad, and that they don't know anything about, there's a reason, I think, that this task force chose to examine critical race theory rather than social justice, or chose to examine critical race theory rather than anti-racism. And I understand that members of this task force believe that those words are one and the same, but I think it's also because the public doesn't know what critical race theory is, and also because critical race theory is something that we can this national message that's kind of going out, which is taking the focus away from the real issues in public education, which Idaho is 51st in the country in public education, right, as you know, in funding. And instead, working to discredit our schools. And I think the Freedom Foundation, you look at their tweets, Wayne Hoffman says he does not believe the government has business in public schools. What does this mean for the public? What does this mean for students? I don't know where I'd be without public schools. I probably wouldn't have the courage to speak up here, because you know what? Public schools are empowering and they teach critical thinking. And that is so important for building the leaders of our future. And it's really unfortunate that our Idaho government is choosing to focus on something that's not happening, rather than the issues that are affecting students right now during this pandemic year, which has been hard on students' mental health during when much of our state can't afford to have full-day pre-kindergarten or full-day kindergarten, much less pre-kindergarten, when property tax rates are rising because our state fails to fund it fails to achieve its constitutionally mandated responsibility of funding public schools equitably, and so communities are taking it upon themselves to raise their own property taxes to pay for public schools, and I think that's really unfortunate. And I think It's unfortunate that we have a $1.4 billion surplus and none of that is going to public schools, which I think are, the foundation of America. People say, I wish someone would ask me, well, why is America great? Why is America the greatest country on earth? And I think it's because we have this opportunity for civil discourse. We have this opportunity to have public testimony, and it's unfortunate that there wasn't more of that opportunity earlier in these task force meetings. But because we have those opportunities, I think that allows us to have this democratic society. And by limiting the voice in schools, by limiting what clubs can do, what teachers can say, by intimidating teachers, intimidating students into not discussing issues that matter to them, we are failing our democratic duties, and we're kind of on the road to an authoritarian society, which is, I think, really unfortunate. There needs to be opportunities for student engagement and public involvement at all forums, at all times in government, and local control as well.
Okay, Shiva, I would just comment that that's what we're doing. We're here, we're listening, and we're understanding and talking about something that many people don't want to talk about. So, just clarification.
Madam Chair, can I respond to that really quick?
Yes.
I think what I appreciate that you are taking the opportunity to hear public comment today, but you recognize that school has started, and students this whole summer have been showing up to this task force, trying to testify, and we're not able to. And also that there are issues facing Idaho's public schools much bigger than critical race theory. And critical race theory, frankly, I haven't seen any evidence in this task force that it's very credible, even from that bullying instance, which I really feel for. I haven't seen evidence of critical race theory teaching, and in my own education, I certainly haven't seen that. We're, with the limited funding that schools run on right now, it's really difficult to even get through the curriculum, much less, talk about something that, it would take years of education to really fully understand.
Well, Shiva, we are going to continue our conversations, so even after today. So we always welcome the voice of all Idahoans, and I, as the chair of the committee, have stated from day one that our schedule of studying was never meant to exclude young people's voices. We had a schedule where we were going to but understand the different areas of study and then open up to public response. It wasn't our intent to exclude young voices from our testimony. So
I understand, but you understand how young voices were excluded given that school has now started in the local region.
Well, as I said, we are going to continue our discussion.
I'd love to sit down with you more and just have a conversation.
Okay.
And I appreciate you taking the time out of it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. Okay. And just one other final thing is the reason why and to your young colleagues, to encourage and facilitate the discourse with Idahoans and we do have to establish some guidelines and criteria for public testimony. And when we advertised the process of how we were going to do this, that we advertised for people to either call the office or show up at 12:30, and we would have a sign-up sheet. We do that for a reason, because we need to know how many people will be present so that we can divide the time that's available to how many people sign up. And that's the reason why we do that. It's not at all to exclude any voice.
I understand. Some committees also have had an online form, and I recommend that highly for.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much. Ryan, do you have a question for?
Yes, Madam Chair and Shiva, I'm sorry that you've been disappointed by the difficulty in providing testimony to this task force, given that we didn't conveniently place it within your summer vacation. Those of us on the task force have difficulty relating to that because we earn money for our families year-round, so that's probably something that we didn't realize.
I understand that, Mr. Spoon, and I actually earn money as well year-round. But I would say that maybe that points to the flaw behind this task force, which is that none of you are students, so none of you understand what students are going through. None of you, I don't believe, except maybe Mr. Moffat, although I understand he was recently discontinued, none of you are educators currently. And so maybe you don't understand what educators are experiencing in this adverse year and what the real struggles are behind, education in Idaho right now.
Okay, and then just one final comment is that my office, the office of the Lieutenant Governor, is always open for feedback. My door is always open. It has remained always open during this last year, and anytime you or any of your colleagues wish to come in and talk, I will welcome that. So
All
thank
right.
you.
I'll definitely pay you a visit. Thank you so much.